Hello, and welcome to the Modern Persian Food podcast. We are food bloggers,
Bita Arabian,
and Bita Nazim Kelly, and we're here to share with you the rich flavors and fresh ingredients of Persian cooking and how to incorporate them into today's modern lifestyles.
we're so excited to introduce you to the flavors, tastes, and techniques we use and our own stories growing up in Persian American families. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome to episode 4 of Modern Persian Food, where Bita and I are going to talk about onions and how they fit into our Persian recipes and how onions play a large part in Persian food and culture as a whole. Bita has a little bit of the health benefits that we're going to talk about, and we're going to also talk about the main ways that you use onion in your cooking. Tell us why we should be eating onions.
Sure, I'm happy to give the health coach reasons that we eat a lot of onions in addition to that they burst the flavor in Persian cuisine. You know, root vegetables have a lot of health benefits. They have medicinal benefits, and many old cultures, like Persian culture being thousands of years old, believe in incorporating onions and garlic into the cuisine as a medicine to fight illness. In modern culture, we know that they have a lot of vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants, and we understand that that does fight disease. But root vegetables in Persian cuisine are quite common. Pretty much use almost all of them. Onions, garlic, shallots, radishes, beets.
A side thing on onions is that it absorbs impurities in the air too. So actually it's like an old Persian thing too, that if you are sick, like if you have a cold or something, if you leave like an onion out, it actually will absorb the impurities and like the germs from the air.
Oh, wow.
A lot of times those old Persian things like really work much better than we give them credit for.
I think that one of the interesting things when it comes to onions and Persian food is the fact that we eat raw onions. Not only do we cook it into our food, but we eat raw onions. It comes on platters, you know, in our appetizers with our fresh herbs. And it's often just there on the plate. You know, I think that for my Western friends, the first time that they've seen it eaten that way, almost like an apple, it can be a little shocking. It's just kind of like one of those cultural differences. Do you like eating raw onions?
I actually do like eating raw onions. It's kind of like a condiment, actually. I think of it like a condiment to like when you're eating like a rich stew or with like chola kebab with rice and kebabs or something like that. You have this basically like the onion will be in quarters or eighths, little wedges of it. And you take a wedge and then you like kind of peel off layer by layer and take a bite out of it as you're eating your other food. So I actually really enjoy it. There's some foods that like it tastes like really good to have raw onions. Abgusht, like brothy soup, basically. It tastes really great with fresh herbs and raw onions. So I think that you're right, that's a kind of like a shock to a lot of people. It's like, what? Why is there raw onion on the table? The other way that raw onions play a role is also like within the salads, like salad Shirazi. The onion is diced with diced cucumbers and tomatoes in like a lemon juice, olive oil dressing. So that's delicious too. But raw onions are definitely, I think, kind of like the main way people are kind of shocked about that we eat it for pleasure.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The only thing I can think of in Western cuisine that might be similar is like eating pickles with your sandwich. Although there is raw onion in hamburgers.
And some sandwiches. People have like onions on their sandwiches sometimes too.
Yes, a gal I coach, her favorite sandwich is with raw onion. She eats it with red onion, ham, and black olives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, to each their own. I think another main way of cooking with onion or having it part of Persian food is fried onions. You've heard me talk about how growing up, when I would wake up and I would smell the scent of onions being fried, I knew that it was like a cooking day or my mom was cooking something delicious. That's basically the foundation of almost all Persian stews and a lot of Persian cooking is that fried onions that has turmeric added to it. And then after that, the vegetables or meats or whatever that's going into that dish. But that smell of fried onions and fried garlic for that matter is just like so delicious.
Mm-hmm. What do you call that in Farsi? There's a word for it.
Yeah, pièce d'or.
Mhm.
So you can make like a big batch of pièce d'or actually, because sometimes if you cook a lot, you don't need to like spend the time to fry the onions before every dish. Like if you're going to be making multiple things or if you're making a lot of food that week or something like that. So you can actually make a bigger batch of it and then put it in a jar and cover it with oil. Make sure it's covered with oil. And that will stay in your fridge for like a week or so. And you can just take a spoonful of it and add it to whatever dish that you're making if you want to be a little more efficient with your time or, menu planning. That's always helpful to have that. So you have that in the fridge and then you're cooking burgers. You can just put like a little spoonful of it on your burger or whatever other dish that you want to kind of incorporate that.
Exactly. You make a bunch and you have it throughout the week, but then, like you said, it just gets eaten, sometimes not even mixed into another recipe, but just alongside of your food and your burgers and your other stews, that it just tastes good. So you just have it as a side.
Yeah. And you can actually freeze it too, if you wanted to.
I do that too. Yes.
Especially like during the week when you want to try to cook and you may not have enough time because you have other obligations and work and things like that. That's a good cheat to have that on hand. The other way that I like fried onions, you can use the same method that we just talked about, or there's another way to fry onions as like a really beautiful garnish. And I've typically seen it mostly on like Asheh Reshteh. And as you know, Asheh Reshteh is like this hearty noodle, spinach, bean soup, which is like lovely and nutritious. I love it so much. You can have fried onions as a garnish for that. And the special way that you can fry it is actually you toss the raw onion after you've diced it or put it in like little juliennes or however way you want to do it. You toss it with a little bit of flour first, and then you fry that. And then it makes it like crunchy onions, what you can top your green bean casserole with type of fried onion.
I have never put flour in my sauteed onions. That's an interesting strategy.
It's so delicious. It's like so crunchy and it's a perfect little garnish for on top of like a Asheh Reshteh or a different kind of like hearty soup.
I'm going to have to try that to get the extra crunch. I do definitely use it that way on top of Asheh Reshteh and some other appetizers. I like to make an eggplant dish, a Persian eggplant dip. We call it Borani. And what gets the crunch for me is I fry it with dried mint. And that gets it crunchy and adds flavor. I love it. And I will sometimes even put that type of topping on my Persian soup, the ash.
So you fry it with the mint, like together?
Yeah, saute the onion first a bit until it's translucent and caramelized. And then at the end, because the mint will burn and cook much faster, just at the end I cook it in there and it gets a little crunchy.
Oh, that's such a great idea. Because when I use fried mint on top of my ash, I do it separately. That's great to like cut out one step. I'll definitely try that next time. So that's fried onions. Should we talk about grated onions?
Yes.
The two main ways that I was thinking about grated onions is with kebabs. So like the ground meat kabab kubide, you grate onions in it. So it's very different than like your traditional, like get like ground beef and make like a patty or something like that. In Persian style of making kebabs is you actually grate the onions and then use the grated onions with the ground beef and then whatever seasoning that you want to use, salt, pepper, if you want to put turmeric or anything else with it. And as you know, Persian kebabs are basically charbroiled on flat skewers. And so there's like an art to taking the meat that has the onion and the seasoning on it and to make it stay on a flat skewer and as in charbroiling it without it actually falling off of the skewer. And the way to do that is basically they call it like chang bizani. You have to like really knead the meat, basically overwork the meat with the onion. So like if you're making, again, we're going back to burgers again, but if you make like a burger, you don't really want to work the meat too much. But when you're making the kebab with the raw onion, grated onion in there, it's basically translate to like clawing the meat. You work it. And so that it becomes more manageable and more pliable to actually put it on the skewer.
Yeah, and Persian kebab, the one that's made with the fatty ground beef or ground lamb, is called kubide. And the word kubide means to squeeze and knead and kind of beat, doesn't it?
Yeah, ground, basically.
Ground and sort of squeezing it. You got to work it, like almost like a dough and just keep squeezing it. And I wear gloves. But kubide is pretty much just ground beef or lamb and onion and salt and pepper. And you can put other things and you can get more fancy, but onion and meat is pretty much all that's in it. And it's so delicious.
It is. And then the char that you get from it being like from an open flame is so delicious, served over rice or with bread, like in a little like wrap.
So the word that you're talking about, chang, it's kind of a new word when referred to kebab for me. My Farsi is more limited than yours, as we are coming to know. But I know the word chang, and I'm a huge animal person. We have cats, we have dogs, we've had bunnies, we've had everything, and horses. Chang is to claw, right? Isn't it like my cat, Chang?
Yeah, exactly.
So are you talking about the chang, the claw marks that go into the kubide as you're squeezing it on to make it stick? Is that chang?
When you say changish bezane, it's like you're actually the act of like their paw or your hand changing the raw meat to like work it. That's what they call it.
So next time I make kubide, I'm going to claw that thing. I'm going to chang it. I want to think about my 3 cats.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Get all your aggression out.
I'm going to do that.
The other type of kebab, actually, that we use the grated onion for is for a marinade for juja kebab. So juja kebab is either Cornish game hen or chicken breast or some sort of poultry, basically chicken, poussin, that you can also skewer on a flat skewer or put straight on the barbecue. But it's just basically like a kebab that's made out of chicken. And one of my cousins, Farhad, he's like so good at it. His juja kebab is like so delicious.
Oh, do you have Farhad's recipe?
So I asked him, how does he make his marinade for his chicken? And so he uses grated onions, a bunch of grated onions, a bunch of saffron, lemon juice, and then salt and pepper or lemon pepper if he wanted to do that. And he has a secret ingredient that is soy sauce.
Oh.
And basically marinades it for like 2 days.
Everything you said up until the lemon pepper and the soy sauce, I was like, yes, 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 that's exactly how I do it. And then soy sauce.
So then he marinades it for a few days and then grills it up, and it is like so delicious. And then he'll have like grilled tomatoes next to it, and again with like rice and a bunch of like sabzi khordan and tadik. So
that sounds delicious.
Yeah. So you make juja kebab too?
I haven't made it from scratch in quite some time, but it is a favorite. Juja means young chicken. I've had friends that, in terms of endearment, that we call each other Juja. My husband and I used to call each other Juge. I'm not sure why I called him a chick, but when I have made it in the past, that's how I make it. Lots of lemon juice, saffron, marinated in onions if you have time. I'm going to try the soy sauce trick.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I don't have Farhad making it for me, I usually will have juja kebab out in a restaurant, which I love. And you can get it like the Cornish game hen, which is they'll serve it on the bone. So you get like little pieces of it on the skewer, which is delicious. Usually with like a little wedge of lemon. Mm-hmm. But those are the main ways that I use the grated onion in Persian food.
Have you had modern chicken kebab? I forget what they call it in Farsi, where they actually use ground chicken with onion.
The chicken kubide. Yeah, I definitely have had that before. And that's just like such a more health conscious version of eating it. You still get a lot of those really delicious flavors, but it's much healthier to have like the lower fat of the chicken than to have it from the ground beef or lamb.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then we also can like grill the onions. If you do like little skewers of like a shish kebab or something like that. I think you do those sometimes, don't you?
Mm-hmm. I love grilled onion. Didn't we talk about the grilled tomato at restaurants? There's almost always grilled onion and the grilled tomato. It's like a shish kebab.
Yeah, it really brings out the sweetness of the onions and it makes it super delicious.
Bita, I have a grill pan at home. So our barbecue is challenged because the lighter is broken and it's sort of scary to light it. I wouldn't mind barbecuing, except I don't want to blow off my head with my hair. But I eventually got an indoor grill pan.
Like a cast iron one?
Yeah, and it's got grooves, and so I can kind of give the grilling flavor and essence using that pan. You can do onions and vegetables and meats right on it.
Yeah, we have a big one that actually fits over like 2 burners, and it's a cast iron one. And on one side, it has like the grill. And if you can flip it, and then on the other side, it's like a flat top. You know, cooking on like a cast iron or like the grill, it adds so much more flavor.
Mm-hmm. And health benefits, because as you say, with frying onions, they're delicious, but you have to use oil. We often use olive oil, which is some degrees better for you. But with grilling and with using a grill pan, you can get away with spray oil. Of course, a regular grill, you don't need any oil at all, except for if you're going to add some when you're marinating.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, so this week's Ask the Beats comes from, take it away, Beata. Who's our question?
We have a question from Justin from San Francisco. And he asks, this is a related question, which is great, is how do I store my onions? So, I'm going to have you answer, Beata, because I'm not very good at storing my onions. I basically have like a little stand that I have in my kitchen that I'll have like my whatever root vegetables I have for the week, like my potatoes and my sweet potatoes and my garlic. And I have my onions just sitting out like that, like direct sun, not direct sun, but direct light for sure.
If it works for you and you're using it often enough, it sounds like that's a fine strategy. I do have a few ways I store. I sometimes will only use half an onion or a quarter of an onion or something. If I'm not using all of it, I'll just put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in my veggie drawer in the fridge. If it's a relatively small bag of onions, I do have a pantry closet in my kitchen nearby, and I'll just keep it in there. But as of late, given the pandemic and ordering groceries, I get a big, huge bag of onions and I keep them in a crate in the garage, which I do find is a little cooler and maybe not as much sun, and I can preserve them longer in there. We also have a refrigerator in the garage, so some of the overflow can go in there as well.
Yeah, like green onions specifically, I'll store in the fridge, in the crisper drawer. And yeah, if we don't use a whole onion, then I'll put it in a Ziploc bag too. And that's because it's like if you don't have it in a sealed container, the whole refrigerator will start to smell like onions.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I definitely notice that if there's like an old onion smell, like if someone ate a sandwich earlier and like it was in the trash or something and it had onions in it, like you'll definitely know, like I'll walk in, I'll be like, who had onions on their sandwich? Because I can really smell that.
Oh, I like sweet onions. I like when onions get caramelized and taste sweeter. And I like, they don't have much of a bite. Do you have any strategy to take out some of that bite if you're going to eat strong onion?
Sometimes the onion can be too strong for me when I'm eating it. So what I do is you cut the onion and you put it in a little bowl of water, cover it with water for like a few minutes. And it really takes the like sharpness off and it really leaves you with just the sweet tasting onion. So if you're ever wanting to make your sabzi khordan and it's a really strong onion, you could just soak it in water for a few minutes to make it a little bit more manageable.
Well, that's a good tip. Hey, are you an onion crier? Or do your eyes tear when you slice onions?
Sometimes. I think it also depends on the more fresh it is. I think the more you cry, I think.
Maybe, but somehow my eyes must be really strong, or maybe it's that I wear contacts, but I really do. Whereas some other people I know, like my daughter, she could just be near the onion in the room, and her eyes are irritated and crying, tearing.
Maybe you have more experience with it too. Oh, I remember you were telling me one time, doesn't your mother-in-law have like a really good tip?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like if I'm cooking and I've been cooking like frying onions, I need to like shower off afterwards.
Oh, that's so funny. I don't know why I don't mind it. Our family have a lot of hair. I have a lot of hair. My girls have a lot of beautiful thick hair. And my mother-in-law, if it's a cooking day and she definitely going to be cooking with onions, she will wrap her hair up in a kerchief and she looks adorable. She's a beautiful woman. You know, like a cowboy bandana, that kind of kerchief. But yeah, that's what she does. And she does it because she wants to keep her hair fresh so she doesn't have to shampoo it out.
That's a great idea. So everyone, I hope you liked listening to onions, and let us know if you have any questions or feedback. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. Send us your questions to hello@modernpersianfood.com, and we'll do our best to include them in our next episode. Thanks for listening.
So you've been listening to Modern Persian Food with Bita and Beata. Thanks for spending time with us. If you enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling your friends or giving us a good rating on iTunes. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app or find us online at modernpersianfood.com for recipes and info that we talked about today. Thanks so much. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and see you next time.